In a remote corner of the world, shrouded in perpetual mist and surrounded by towering, ancient trees, lay a forest that had been the source of dread for generations. This place, known simply as the Whispering Woods, was not like any other forest. It was a haunted realm, a sinister labyrinth where the spirits of the dead were said to roam freely, seeking to ensnare the living. The tale of the Whispering Woods had been passed down through countless generations, a story whispered around campfires and told in hushed tones to children who would quiver with fear. It was said that the forest was cursed, a place where once you entered, you might never find your way out again. One chilly autumn evening, a group of adventurous friends decided to put the legend to the test. They had heard the stories and scoffed at the superstitions, believing that there was nothing more than a spooky campfire story hidden within the woods. Armed with flashlights, backpacks, and the unyielding spirit of youth, they ventured into the heart of the Whispering Woods. As the group ventured deeper into the forest, the mist grew denser, and the towering trees closed in around them like skeletal fingers. The night air was filled with an eerie silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. The forest seemed to come alive, the very trees conspiring to confuse and entangle the intruders. They realized that their flashlights were unreliable, flickering and dying when needed most. Panic began to set in as they realized they had lost their way. The winding paths seemed to shift, the trees themselves moving to block their way. The soft whispers of the wind turned into chilling, otherworldly voices that echoed in the darkness. As the group grew more desperate, they stumbled upon an ancient, moss-covered stone altar hidden deep within the woods. It was a place where, as the legend went, sacrifices had once been made to appease the forest's malevolent spirits. The friends were unnerved by the sight, but continued to search for an escape. The forest seemed to come alive, as shadowy figures danced at the edge of their vision. Fear gnawed at them, and the sinister atmosphere grew thicker with every step. They had walked for what felt like an eternity when they finally found a narrow, winding path leading them back to the forest's edge. As they emerged from the Whispering Woods, they could hear faint whispers and lamentations echoing behind them. Though they had escaped the forest, the experience had forever changed them. Their once skeptical hearts were now filled with terror, and they knew the stories were not just tales meant to frighten. The Whispering Woods was real, and it held secrets that were never meant to be uncovered. From that day forward, the friends carried the weight of the forest's haunting whispers, the memories of the supernatural horrors they had witnessed in the heart of those malevolent woods. They would never forget the haunted forest that lived, breathed, and whispered dark secrets, its curse forever etched in their minds. In a forgotten corner of the countryside, there stood a forest that had long been the subject of chilling stories and warnings. Known to the locals as the Dreadwood, this sinister expanse of trees was shrouded in a perpetual, unnatural gloom. The very air within its boundaries felt heavy with an ancient malevolence, and the forest seemed to be alive with an unsettling presence. The legends surrounding the Dreadwood spoke of apparitions, vengeful spirits, and a dark entity that guarded its secrets with a merciless intent. Tales were told of those who ventured into the forest, never to return, or returning as empty, soulless husks of their former selves. One moonless night, a group of curious researchers, driven by their thirst for the unknown, decided to explore the mysteries of the Dreadwood. Armed with sophisticated equipment and guided by scientific curiosity, they believed they could debunk the superstitions that had plagued the forest for centuries. They entered the forest, their flashlights piercing the darkness as they ventured deeper into the oppressive woods. But unlike other forests, the Dreadwood seemed to swallow their light, casting them into an impenetrable blackness. The shadows danced eerily, and the trees whispered secrets that sent shivers down their spines. As the researchers continued their expedition, they realized that their technology was failing, one by one. Their radios emitted nothing but static, and their GPS devices spun wildly, unable to pinpoint their location. Panic began to creep in as they became disoriented, lost in the heart of the Dreadwood. The forest itself seemed to come alive, its trees reaching out to block their path. They heard ghostly cries, and unseen hands brushed against their skin. The air grew icy, and the darkness pressed in on them. They knew they were not alone. Exhausted and terrified, the group stumbled upon a clearing within the forest, where an ancient, gnarled tree stood. It was unlike any they had seen before, its roots twisting and curling like the limbs of some monstrous creature. It radiated a malevolent energy that sent shockwaves through their very souls. As they gazed upon the tree, they realized the horrifying truth: the Dreadwood was no mere forest, but a sentient, ancient evil that had lured them into its grasp. They had become trapped, ensnared by the very forest they had sought to unravel. As the darkness closed in around them, the researchers were left with a chilling understanding. The legends were not mere superstitions, they were warnings. The Dreadwood was a realm of darkness, a haunted forest where the spirits of the departed dwelled, and the malevolent entity that ruled it was a force beyond human comprehension. The researchers' curiosity had led them to the brink of madness and despair, and they would become permanent residents of the haunted forest, forever lost in its endless, menacing depths. Nestled on the outskirts of a small, forgotten village, there lay a forest that had long been the source of dread and superstition. The villagers referred to it simply as the Cursed Grove. Its name spoke to the ominous reputation it had earned over the centuries. The legend of the Cursed Grove was a chilling one. It was said that the forest was inhabited by tormented souls, forever trapped in a state of anguish and despair. Those who ventured too deep into its heart would become hopelessly entangled in the spirit's misery, their own souls forever marked. One moonless night, a group of thrill-seekers, dismissing the villagers' warnings as old wives' tales, decided to challenge the legend of the Cursed Grove. Armed with flashlights, they ventured into the eerie forest, determined to prove that the stories were nothing more than the product of fear and superstition. The moment they entered, the air grew unnaturally cold, and a heavy silence hung in the trees like a shroud. The moon's feeble light barely pierced the thick canopy, casting eerie shadows that seemed to reach out for them. The friends laughed nervously, attributing their discomfort to mere imagination. As they journeyed further into the heart of the Cursed Grove, their flashlights began to flicker erratically, casting eerie, fleeting shapes on the twisted tree trunks. Panic set in as they realized their lights were dying, one by one, and their way back was lost in the labyrinthine tangle of the forest. The very trees seemed to come alive, their branches reaching out to grasp the intruders. Whispers filled the air, mournful voices that seemed to speak directly to their minds. Shadows danced at the edge of their vision, and the ground beneath their feet felt uncertain, as if it were moving with a malicious intent. The group found themselves in a small, moonlit clearing at the center of the forest. In the center stood a solitary, gnarled tree, its branches contorted like gnarled fingers. It exuded an aura of pure malevolence, and the friends understood that the legends were no mere tales. Desperation overtook them as they realized they were trapped in the Cursed Grove, and there was no way out. Their cries for help were met with eerie, haunting laughter that echoed through the trees. They had become ensnared in a web of anguish and despair woven by the tormented spirits of the forest. The friends' laughter had turned to screams, their skepticism replaced by sheer terror. They had ventured too far into the haunted forest, and now they were doomed to join the ranks of the restless souls forever imprisoned in the Cursed Grove. The legend was no mere superstition, it was a dark, chilling reality that had claimed them as its own.